I was in my 20s, I thought that my wife and I, Teresa, would be going to the mission field, but God said no, and I thought, why does God say no to somebody who wants to go? And then as He just developed my life and worked in my life, He showed me that my part in the Great Commission is to mobilize others. Because Jesus has changed us, we want to share Him with others. It's fundamental to who we are as followers of Christ, but some people have this DNA, I think, like Paul. It's always been my ambition to share the gospel where Christ was not known. Frontiers is a mission agency. We recruit, we train, we send people to the Muslim world. Some people have this apostolic, we call it not big A apostolic, but little a apostolic, pioneering passion that God has put in them. And so when you talk about, going to places where people have never gone before and people have never heard the gospel, you'll just see some people resonate with that. And you realize that God has put that apostolic DNA within them. And so it's not really recruiting. It's connecting with people with whom God is already at work. See, this whole thing is God's work. This isn't me, Perry, trying to, convince somebody to do something that's impossible, because it is impossible. You got to have somebody who's been touched in their heart by God, and they know that God's called them to do something impossible. And when you start speaking in those terms, they resonate with it. When I see somebody who just wants to give their life for the great cause, it's the greatest cause there is. I mean, I'm gonna get behind them, and if I have to shove them forward, I'll do it. But I really don't have to, because when you meet somebody who really has it in their heart, they want to go. I mean, just a little bit of encouragement is like a match on gasoline. You may ask the question, why mobilize to Muslims? Well, there are 3,000 groups of people in the world that haven't had their first Christian worker, haven't had their first missionary. 1,200 of those groups are Muslims. There's this guy named David Garrison. He's done a lot of research, and there's these movements of Muslims coming to Christ. A movement is at least 1,000 Muslims that have been baptized. But some of these movements are, into the tens of thousands. He wanted to see where the first movement happened since the death of Muhammad, and it was in the late 1800s. All that time, no movements of Muslims to Christ, just 2 or 3 Muslims here and there coming to Christ. In the 20th century, 9 more movements happened. But since 2000, another 64 movements have begun among Muslims. So God is doing more in the Muslim world than He ever has before. Going to the Muslim world isn't for somebody who wants to live a long life and die in their sleep quietly. It will shorten your lifespan if you go to the Muslim world, I kid you not. But it is a great adventure, because when you're in the middle of God's will, then nothing else really matters. If I could write a song, if I could produce a radio spot, if I could do an interview, if I could sit down with somebody over coffee, and God could use me to say something or to sing a particular song that would cause that person to want to go to the Muslim world. And if they then went to the Muslim world and they met someone influential in the Muslim world and they won them to Christ, and then that influential person gathered around them a group of people, a household, and the gospel caught flame in that household, and then that household started sharing it with other households, and it spread to the entire people group. That's mobilization. That's what's possible. Every person watching can mobilize and talk about reaching the nations, talk about going to places where Christ has never been named, and see if people resonate, and then just start encouraging them.